Well, guys, after a season and a half, the show has finally topped its biggest reveal yet, with an even bigger reveal that I don't think anyone really saw coming. Hey guys, Kevin Buffer, Mr. Robot, Season 2, Episode 7, Handshake.SME, and holy shit, one episode. I mean, this episode really was crazy, and it really should have been a long time coming, though, because I think from the beginning we've known that there's kind of been more to the story, and a lot of people have been talking about this. Also, guys, I forgot to say I'm actually doing this video on my birthday, so yes, but anyway, I was definitely really looking forward to this episode, obviously because of last week. I was really looking forward to seeing what was going to happen there, and this by far was the best episode of the season. I love this episode, and might just be the best episode the show has given us, because much like White Rose, that episode where they revealed the big twist that, Mr. Robot was his dead father, and things like that, and that Darlene was his sister, this episode does exactly what that does, and that it puts all the pieces together. Finally, things that didn't make sense start to make sense here. You start to understand why certain things were happening, and I think they did a very good job of that in this episode. I absolutely love this episode. Amazing stuff here, and there's so much to talk about. Really, there's so much to talk about, especially with that reveal, and I know a lot of people are mixed about it, but I'm going to basically explain why I think it worked really well here. But let's get into this episode, which actually didn't start out with Elliot. It starts out with actually a flashback where we see Joanna's at home. She sits down, opens an envelope that has new earrings in it, and I was a bit confused because Tyrell comes down the stairs. I was thinking this was the present day, but we very quickly realized that this is actually for a gala. They're going to a gala where they meet Sharon and Scott, and this was when Tyrell was just starting out. Sharon comments her earrings. Joanna says that Tyrell's always spoiling her with gifts, and we cut to present day. Joanna's with her baby outside when this woman comes up to her, calls her a capitalist pig. She throws pig's blood on her, and this was just such a good scene. I love the way this was done. She's screaming in anger, but nobody can hear, and it's kind of the showing that as much power as Joanna has, when she goes out into the real world and she's just, there, she's just another common pedestrian. She's not really anything to anyone else. No one really cares about her that much, and it's sad, definitely, because as much as we do fear for Joanna, as much as she definitely does scare us, because Joanna is a scary woman, I'm definitely going to say it. I mean, even in her eyes, she has that look where it just looks like she's always staring at you. She, in general, is someone that is really not that threatening in the outside world. You definitely do see that, and especially with the depression and things like that. So I thought that definitely was very interesting. So Elliot then talks to us and says that he knows and sees us, and this is really when we get into the big stuff, because what I loved about this episode really is that it reminds us of our, interaction with the show and how important we are to this show, how we are a character in this show, and it reminds us of that here. The reason that we haven't had as much of knowledge or known as much about Elliot is because, as you know, ever since the Season 1 reveal, Elliot hasn't really trusted the audience. He's always thought that we were against him, and he's very much been against us, and this is the episode where finally he earns his trust back, and he says time to talk, get to know each other well. He says all this is set with a simple handshake between two people. It's not any different between a client connecting with a server. It all relies on that first handshake and naturally grows from there. And for most people like him, can't seem to learn the rules. And I thought that was a very interesting scene. The way he's comparing talking with an audience to just a simple handshake is really interesting, because yeah, when you shake someone's hand, that's a mutual agreement. That's kind of you being on good terms with someone and you agreeing to something. And I like the way that he thinks that all this can just be cleared up in a handshake, which is perfect title, by the way. So Elliot's in pain, he's clearly breaking, and he's very much affected by what Ray and his goons did to him, and he asked Mr. Robot that when they were in the illusion, and when he protected him, what was that he's never seen? What was that he's never seen it before? Because he's never seen, obviously, what he saw in episode 6. No one's ever seen something like that, and Elliot as well is in complete disbelief. He doesn't want to believe what he actually saw, and Mr. Robot says again that it's what he needed, and Elliot asks why he was trying to hide him, and Mr. Robot asks what he means, and Elliot says Tyrell. He was acting like he wasn't in the trunk when he clearly was. He saw him there, and there's a reason why, and I knew that there definitely was some symbolism there, and we get a hint of what that symbolism is, because Mr. Robot says that he thought that they were past this, and they shouldn't be thinking backwards, and Elliot asks what he's so afraid will happen if he tells him the truth, and Mr. Robot asks why he wants to know so badly, and why does he even fucking care, and Elliot says he doesn't want to be in denial anymore, he just wants to accept what he did, move on, and just move on with it, because he doesn't want to be in this denial anymore, and Mr. Robot finally complies. He sits down, says he'll tell him, and I love that. I love that finally they seem to be on terms, because throughout the entire season he said, oh, no, I'll never tell you, and finally it seems like he's going to tell him, and he asks Elliot what the last thing he remembers is, and all Elliot says is popcorn, and you know what's amazing? That's all that we know as well. The only thing we saw of the hack was Elliot and Tyrell in that room, and Tyrell having the popcorn machine. That's the last thing that we saw, was the popcorn machine. So I love that the last thing that Elliot remembers is the last thing that we saw. It just again shows that Elliot only shows us what he knows, and we only know as much as Elliot does. He only shows us what he wants us to see, and he'll, create facades and things like that, and that's a big part of this episode. The word facade really goes into, I think, this entire season, and it's one of the biggest themes of the show, but especially this season, and it definitely does make sense after we get to the big reveal later on. The other big part of this episode, which involves, of course, Angela, because we know that Angela started the hack with F Society, and that continues in this episode. But the biggest stuff in this episode, I think, is her role of dominance, and how dominant she is with everyone, and how she feels she has this power with everyone. But we'll get into that. But Angela's an evil corp. Dom goes right up to her, and the second that we saw Dom last week, I'm like, she definitely is going to be trouble. There's definitely something that Dom knows, and you can tell, because Dom's being her usual casual self, introducing herself, asked what she was doing on her floor. Angela says that she was making plans with Agent Thomas, that they were trying to decide drinks tomorrow or lunch today, and Dom asks where she landed. Angela says lunch. Dom asks how they knew each other. Angela asks if there's something else she can help her with. Dom says that her story fascinates her, to leave Allsafe after a week before the company got hacked, and then ended up there. It's ironic given her history, and she doesn't fully understand it, and you can tell that that's the real reason Dom's looking at her, because she wants to obviously know the reason why she left, and Darlene tells her not to freak out, she's got nothing on her, and if she did, she'd already be busted. What I love about this, though, is that as much as Darlene's going in her ear, Angela doesn't really need her, which is something I thought was definitely very interesting. Even though Angela clearly is terrifying the scene, she doesn't necessarily need Darlene to counsel her, and I feel like Darlene thinks she needs that role, because Darlene wants to be that leader, but she doesn't have to be a leader for Angela. Angela can get by on her own. I think that's something we definitely do see here, that Angela doesn't really need Darlene, and even though these two have been best friends forever, for as long as they can remember, she doesn't really need Darlene in this scenario. So Dom says that she was going to have her jump by soon anyway. Angela asks what for. Dom says to get a few questions and statements, nothing crazy. And Angela says she'd be happy, but she's really busy right now. Dom says whatever this is, it isn't her. And she can tell that definitely there's something she's hiding, because obviously Angela's lying. I mean, it's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. It doesn't sound true at all. Darlene gives her commands to continue the hack, and Darlene says she just owned the FBI, and we don't really know what's going on there, but obviously that Dom has some sort of ulterior motive. You know that. The second that she's done this conversation, I'm like, there's definitely more going on there. There's no reason she'd be that casual and try to get that much information out of Angela. There's definitely more going on, and you don't really know what it is yet. So we go back to Elliot. He says that he did it, and Mr. Robot, it was either them or Tyrell, and basically realizes that they either committed the hack, or it was either, them or Tyrell, and Elliot asks how he did it. Mr. Robot says that he was batshit, raving about killing some woman, the wonder of it all, and either way they were going to be next, and Elliot asks how he did it. Mr. Robot says after he ran the scripts, he went off on them being gods. The popcorn is where Darlene says she hid the gun, and he didn't want to, but he shot him, and keep in mind, he didn't say kill. He said shot him. So I'm assuming that Tyrell's in the hospital. That's what I'm assuming. I don't think Tyrell's dead. A lot of people are thinking Tyrell's dead. I don't think Tyrell's dead. I'm going to tell you exactly why by the end of this episode. Especially the twist in the end of this episode makes a lot of sense why I think Tyrell definitely isn't dead. Elliot says that he did, and he's freaking out because he has no memory of this, of course. Mr. Robot did all this, and he's just kind of realizing that, holy shit, he might have actually killed him. And just that realization sinking in, and also on the viewers realizing that Tyrell might be dead, it makes sense why we might not have seen him. And I think I know the real reason why we haven't seen Tyrell. But again, that goes with the end of this episode. So let's get back into it. Joanna and Derek are then having sex, and Derek really, I think this is the biggest role he's had in the show yet, because Derek really starts to see Joanna's true colors in this episode. Derek says he told his friends that she was coming. She says that he knows that can't happen. She thought that this was their celebration only. He's having a birthday party where he's turning 30. He wants her to be his +1 and come as his girlfriend, and he basically tells her, look, you're coming to my party as my girlfriend or we're done. And you can tell that obviously, again, Joanna is the dominant one here. She always has a role of dominance. Even when they're having sex, she's the one telling him to go harder. She's the one telling him to put the knife in her. I mean, just little things like that really do show the role that Joanna has. And same with Tyrell. Even though Tyrell's a loose cannon and he always is very creepy to watch, the main reason why he's doing all this stuff is mainly because Joanna tells him to. I mean, Joanna was the one that said do something about Sharon. Did she mean kill Sharon? No, but she did say to do something about her and to get even and to get revenge on Scott. She said all these things to do. So she really set the trap for Tyrell. So you kind of are starting to wonder, did Joanna kind of mean to ruin her marriage, possibly? Which we will get into at the end of this, when we get to something a little bit later. But Dom is then looking at surveillance footage, and the entire archive is corrupt. And Dom tells them to call the network team, says they just got hacked, and she says to rig the 23rd floor and check Angela's computer, because she's sure she hid anything, but they won't know unless they look. And he asks where she's going. She says it's the 4th of July tomorrow. She wants to find a barbecue to be miserable at, and that's all we see of Dom in this episode. But again, we can tell that Dom obviously is investigating her. She knows that Angela played some type of role in this hack. She doesn't know what role, but she obviously knows that Angela's lying, and this isn't going to end well for anyone. I mean, I think Dom doesn't realize really what she's getting herself into. I think this is something where Dom thinks she can handle this, when obviously we know she can't, and I don't really think Dom knows the half of it all, definitely. I mean, Dom knows a lot about F society and their motives and what they were trying to do, but she doesn't know everything about Angela, and she doesn't really know, I think what she's really getting herself into, but we'll have to see what happens there. I really love the way that scene was done, and especially, again, I love all the stuff going on behind Dom, people being terrified, people being so worried about the hack and everything, and her thinks she can just go to this barbecue, her thinks she has the entire thing under control, when we clearly see that she doesn't. F Society is definitely a step ahead of her, and this definitely is not going to end well for Dom or any of the FBI for that matter. So Angela's in a taxi. She sees and hears about an overabundance of garbage burnings, and drivers are now forced to accept e-coins, which this I just thought was interesting. A lot of this episode is about the background stuff that's going on behind them, such as all the depression and people who are, all the, like that first scene, the episode, episode 2, where you had that scene where that one was in a bank begging for money. I mean, that's like every, person right now. They're all kind of in this state where they're losing money, and that's the thing that's so sad to watch about the seasons, that a lot of what we're seeing, you're realizing that could go out of business, or that could go corrupt, or they could actually lose money, because again, remember, people only deposit $50 a day, if you remember, and it's pretty crazy, but that's the truth right now. So she goes to Darlene, who says that she had her worry not answering her calls after all that went down. Angela says she wants her to go, and Darlene realizes that she knows about Cisco, and she knows that Cisco was the one that sold her CD. She can't keep up this lie anymore. Says that she was the target, that Cisco, she says she was not the target, Cisco was just trying to, and Angela says stop. She doesn't want to talk about it. She already knows what she's going to say. Darlene says she knows, she already put the rest together, and tells her no more smoke screen, says to ask her anything, she's an open book. And I love this scene here, because it takes something that we saw in a flashback, and it's making it have a lot more context. And remember when we saw the Halloween movie, the movie that Darlene and Elliot watched in episode 4? Once again, for the second time they referenced, I forgot to say, one of the commercials they showed was actually a commercial saying that that's going to be on after Mr. Robot, which, that's just genius. I love the way that was done. But Angela says they always thought that she was smarter than her. They never hit it that well. She says every Halloween when they were kids, her and Elliot always made her watch that shitty, scary movie. It was so bad, and all these years later, she's kind of forgotten about it, even when the mask started popping up in those videos. She didn't place it at first, and maybe she did, maybe she didn't want to, and she says that's crazy, walks away, and I think Angela's really saying that she got herself into this. She knew very well what she was getting herself into, and she didn't stop. She didn't, she knew what she was doing. It wasn't Darlene that recruited her. She knew what she was getting herself into, and now she can't get out of it, and I think she very well knows that now. So either way, this can't end well for her, and again, I do like seeing Angela realize that she has this role of dominance, and I thought that definitely was interesting. So Ray then asks Elliot if he's had a long time figuring out what needs to be done, and once again, Craig Robinson is incredible here. But what I also love is that this storyline kind of comes to a close in this episode. This will most likely be the last time we see Craig Robinson, and I don't think it's going to be the last time, but I think it's going to be the last major role that Ray plays in an episode. But he asks Elliot if he had a long time figuring out what needs to be done. Lone Star tells him to wake up. Ray asks if he believes him, and Elliot says yes. Ray says that this is how it's going to go. He's going to sit right there until he does what he has to do, and once the site is up, he's going to crawl back into his hole until they're sure it's good. And and again, he's being forced to be this prisoner. Mr. Robot asks how long this is going to take. Elliot says a few hours. Mr. Robot says once he gets what he wants. Elliot says right now he needs him, so that makes them safe. And Elliot types in the code against the sites, and obviously, you know that he has some sort of plan. You know, he definitely is going to do something. You don't know what he's going to do, but you know that definitely something is going to happen there. We'll have to see what happens with that. Darlene then goes to F Society, asks them what's with the looks, and she looks at the computer. She sees something that's happening tomorrow. We don't know what it is. We're going to find out next week, because apparently next week's episode solely focuses on F Society. I mean, the entire promo was just showing F Society scenes, so I'm assuming we're going to find out what's going on next week. I mean, that's at least what I got from that promo. I think we're most likely going to find out what's going on with F Society next week, and like what they're hiding and things like that. I think we're definitely going to find that out next week, but we'll have to see. Derek then goes to Joanna, says she never showed up, says he told her what happened if she never showed up. She goes to hug him, he said it's not going to work anymore, and he's seen her true colors. He sees deep down she doesn't really care about him, and she's been messing with him for way too long. He says he should have known somebody working at a stock at Evil Corp that part of her would be bad news. She says meeting him at that party changed something in her. She says she'd be lost without him. What he wants, she wants it too. She was hassling her lawyer to give him a birthday gift, which are divorce papers we see. And again, I'm kind of wondering, does Joanna really care about Derek? I mean, this kind of makes me think that maybe she does in fact care about Derek. I don't know. It's interesting, definitely. I kind of feel like maybe she does. I've kind of had this sense that she doesn't, but I feel like maybe she actually does care about Derek. This scene shows that she might actually care about him, and I don't know if she does or if she doesn't, but my thinking is that she needs someone to play. She needs someone to play. She needs someone to use, and with Tyrell possibly dead, Kareem also dead, she needs someone like Derek, and I feel like Derek is going to be her next person to use, and, and things like that. So I feel like Derek is going to be that guy for her, and we'll have to see what happens with that, but that's definitely going to be interesting. And are those actual divorce papers? Is she actually planning on divorcing Tyrell? Because that makes me think that Tyrell's actually alive, because if he was dead, then there'd be like a will and things like that, and we haven't heard anything about that. So I am 99% sure that Tyrell's definitely alive, and we just haven't seen him, because, again, this is something that Ellie doesn't want us to see yet, but we'll have to see what happens with that, because that's going to be interesting. I really did like the way that scene was done, though. I thought that definitely was a very well done scene. But anyway, we then see after this, basically we see Elliot's on the site. Lone Star, once again, just watching over him, says they are gaining more traffic than ever. It says their Bitcoin intact double since they last went on 2K. They could have made it on that way down. He said it's on him. It's time to go back to his cage. But Elliot's not there to do that. He has to play a game for old time's sake. And finally, him and Ray get a chance to actually talk, away from Lone Star, away from all the tour stuff, and they actually get to have a conversation. I think something that Mr. Robot gets done very well and understands a lot better than most shows is villains. I mean, yes, you have villains here that are bad, but what I love about the show is that no one is inherently good or bad. Everyone has good and bad qualities to them, such as Ray, who, when you look at him, he started out as a guy that we kind of cared for. He was quiet, he was nice, but then he turned out to be this really devious guy who's very evil and very menacing. What I love about this scene is that it shows that they're not forgetting to humanize him. They are humanizing him. They're still showing that caring side of him. And that's something I really did love about Craig Robinson, and particularly his performance. Like I said, I really do think he's been Emmy-worthy in all the episodes he's been in, and especially in this scene, he just knocked it out of the park, I have to say. But basically, this is the chance for Elliot and Ray to talk together without Lone Star and all that stuff, and he tells Lone Star to give them the minutes, and they both are playing chess, which of course is how they really started to bond. And I thought it was really appropriate for them to start with them playing chess and end with them playing chess, because this is pretty much the end of Ray's story, at least it seems that way, and Ray thanks him. Elliot asks for what? Ray says when they first met, he thought he was helping him, thought that he was going to be a savior, and he didn't tell him about his wife, how she was so smart, way smarter than him, and was like him, and we find out that she's actually the one that opened up the websites, and, she obviously didn't mean for it to go as far as it did, but she's the one that gave it the money, and the day grew so fast and took a life of its own, and the money is the type of money that makes you question right and wrong, so they made a deal that they would let the market dictate what's on the site and wouldn't look, and basically we kind of realized that they were not the ones that made all of this stuff appear on the Tor site. It kind of just ended up that way, and he says that she was better at denial than him. She hated him for all the things he believed that was going on. She feared the worst, but he still didn't look, not until he came along, and honestly, I don't think he's lying here. I think he is telling the truth, because now there's no reason for him to be lying to Elliot. What benefit is he going to get from continuing to lie to Elliot? Absolutely nothing. There is no benefit there. So I think he, at this point, he's being truthful. I mean, he's not lying here. And he says after he found out what was on there, what he did to him and RT, he was weak, and way back when he said it was about something he was wrong, he should have taken a stand. He says he is his answer, and it's not the other way around. He thanks him. Ray then asks how much time he has left. Elliot wonders what he's talking about. Ray says that they both knew when he allowed him to go back on that computer. Elliot says that with their response time, he would guess that they have him surrounded by now. Ray said he better get out before they get out there. Elliot says a world chess master once said, when you see a good move, look for a better one. He gets up. Ray tells Elliot to be careful, and he walks out, and we realize that Ray is actually being swatted. And not swatted as in YouTube, but swatted as in there's a SWAT team, they go into his house and supposedly killed him. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say Ray's dead. Keep in mind, we didn't see Ray die, so I'm not going to say he's dead. I don't think he's dead, but he says when he completed the migration, he also took it upon himself to open the site to more than just Tor traffic, and he just had to hit exit on a few search engines, and now it's accessible to anyone. So the site's public, and obviously would be public to the police, and anyone who Googles it, and it didn't take long for the FBI to find out about it after we emailed them an anonymous tip. He says now we have a chance to start again as partners, and basically is welcoming us back into his life. Now that he's no longer a prisoner to Ray, we can actually play a role in this, and I definitely really do like seeing that. As much as I like this Ray storyline, it was kind of distracting us from the main narrative, and I thought it was very well done. I really did love it, but I'm glad it's over. I think this is probably the best way to close it out, and that's basically the end of that storyline. So we're now done with Ray. I hope we see him again in, like, flashbacks or something. I don't really know, but especially after the twist, I have a lot of questions about that. But we then see a news report about a bulb crash in the middle of a press conference as a result of F Society, and I love that Angela's visiting her father has nothing to do with this crash, but he is obviously dealing with the crash. He says he hasn't answered her call since the weekend. He says he's been busy, and he says that ever since the bulb fiasco, they're flying off the shelves, and she says that she can settle the lawsuit. She says that Evil Corp will settle, but there's a contingency, and if he drops the independent inspections, that they will settle, and he asks if her boss put her up to this. She says to look at what's happening, and who knows if the company will be around long enough to see the case through, and tells him to drop the contingency. He'll get his money, and he says the inspection is there for a reason, and does she want what happened to her mom to happen again? And she says she'll make sure that the inspection goes forth internally. He asks if that's how this works. She says that they value her over there. She says that he laughs, but they respect her. He says he doesn't know who this is that stands before him, but he doesn't trust them, to be honest, doesn't trust her. And he asks if she really thinks someone's going to want to sign on to whatever it is she's selling. It's not just his fault. It's the whole class. She needs 2/3. She says she already got the signatures. She says the truth about money, it takes care more of it more than anything else. He asks who this is that's helping. She isn't getting the money. He is. And, she's not getting the money. He is. And I like that he reminded her about this stuff, that, she's not the one that's getting all this money. He's the one that's getting paid, and that he asks one more time why she came here, because she certainly didn't give a shit about his appeal, and she says that this was just a criticism, just to see if he'd actually do it, and obviously he failed. And again, I love that Angela is still powerful in that scene. I thought it was just really interesting. I definitely really did love that. Really good stuff there. Elliot's then with Leon, who says Ray got everyone talking. Elliot says he has nothing to do with it, and Leon says that lying ain't his friend right now. Everyone's got their eye on him. Half of them love him, half of them want to kill him, and the others just want to twist shit up. And it's the last half that he's worried about for him. Now, keep in mind, the line is very important once we get into the twist, and a white supremacist group then comes up out of nowhere to them, tells Leon to leave, and when Leon refuses, they tell him bravery is contagious, and he suggests that he talks to him. Elliot says he's fine where he is. They're pissed about Ray's site being down since he can no longer make money, and all of this is on him. He deserves payback and challenges him to a one-on-one later on, and they leave. And Leon then tells him to remember he's sitting on his sword for him. And I just thought that was a very well done scene because it really does show Leon's role in all this. Leon becomes a much more interesting character after this scene, and we'll get into that in a second. But Price then tells Angela, out of the blue, he received a call from his lawyer. It seems a contingency in their lawsuit was miraculously dropped, and he asks her to explain. She says it's what he wanted. He says he remembers telling her the opposite. She says she just didn't want to ask for it, but it is what he wanted, and she asks if he's going to take the offer. He said it's not for him to say officially, but despite the fact that they're hemorrhaging money at the moment, settling this would be a lot cheaper than dealing with the legal expense. And she asks him why it was so important to drop this contingency, because obviously there's a reason why, and she has to be protecting some evil secret agenda, and he says they all have them, and she says one of the things that Colby said to her when she took this job is that she can make changes from within, and she says she wants her position moved to the risk management department. And this is very similar to a scene we saw 2 weeks ago when Angela was asking to have that new position and forces him to give it to her. He didn't comply. However, here, it seems that he's finally going to comply, and I thought this definitely was very interesting that we saw this, and basically she says that he just didn't want to ask for it, but it is what he wants. She asks if he's going to take the offer. He says not for him to say officially, but I just read this. So basically, she says that she wants her position moved, and he says he knows very well that she can make up for it with drive and quick learning, and he actually feels insulted by this. He asks if that's what she chooses to squander the capital she just earned. He asks if she's aware that a lateral move, and she says it's what she wants. She says that she's asking, and he says it's his birthday today, and asks if she knew that, and he says to not believe what she reads online. Today is his actual birthday. He never actually shares the real one with anyone, and some things he likes to keep to himself. She wished him a happy birthday. He asked if she'd like to celebrate with him tonight. She says no. He says maybe next year, and I kind of felt bad for Price in that scene. We kind of are under the impression that despite Price having all this control, he really doesn't have any friends. Angela seems to be his only friend, the only person that he wants to get somewhat close to, and it seems like he's kind of letting her in. So honestly, I felt kind of bad for Price in that end. I mean, even though he can be a douche, and he is running things, and he is the head of everything, and obviously he's very selfish and narcissistic, he very much does care about Angela, and you definitely do see that. You see that he definitely wants a friend, and he'll pretty much do whatever she asks, and I feel like deep down, Price really does care for her, and he really just wants a friend, and I think we kind of do see that. I mean, as ridiculous as it sounds, I think we definitely do see that, and especially in that scene when he asked her, and he's so open about it, and he told her that he never said his actual birthday. There has to be a reason why, and I think the reason is because of the fact that he doesn't really have any friends, and I really like the way they touched upon that. Michael Christopher, I think, is doing a very good job with this role. He's really been killing it, and scenes like this, I think, are why he's so great in this role, so he really did a great job there. Elliot then goes to the woman running the church group, tells her that he's sorry for his outburst last month, and keep in mind, I noticed something weird. This season is taking place in 2015, not 2016, 2015 actually, which I found very odd, but it kind of makes sense after we find out the twist, and he says to let go. She says she knows he's afraid, but the fear he has the right one. He needs to be forever vigilant. She asks if he knows how she knows. She says she's seen him talking to God, not aloud, but it's written all over his face. It's not crazy. It's pretty normal. He asks what she means. She says he doesn't have to keep such a secret anymore. When he lets Jesus into his heart, he'll always listen. And she thinks, basically, that Mr. Robot is Jesus, which in many ways he is. Mr. Robot's there to help him, just like Jesus is kind of there. And he looks at the cross, tells Mr. Robot he needs his help. He's been lost there past few weeks since the whole Ray thing, and he needs to finish what he started with Evil Corp, but he doesn't know what to do. Obviously, he wants to, but he doesn't know what to do about it. Mr. Robot asks why he started listening to him in the first place when he sent him that note on the server, and I thought this was an incredible scene, because Mr. Robot asks why did he approach him? Why did he throw himself into all this? Because, you know, as Evil Corp, something inside him told him not to listen, and he did, followed him on the subway, led his way into F Society, and then he, not him, led them into hacking. It was not, and I like that Mr. Robot said, it was not me, this was all you that did this. This was all Elliot. Mr. Robot was not capable of doing such a thing. He says people want to follow him, and Elliot asks why. Mr. Robot says the same reason why he followed the entire world into a revolution, because he is a leader. He's meant to be a leader, and Elliot needs to realize that. And Elliot says he doesn't want to be. Mr. Robot says he asked him how to finish this. This is what he needs to do. He needs to lead, and I thought that was an incredible scene because it really does show how far we've come. I mean, if you remember, the show started out with Ellie being this social outcast and not really having much of a role, but being so annoyed of the world, and then when he got this opportunity, of course, he wants to be in control, and that's something that Mr. Robot's giving him. He's letting him be in control. He's giving him access. The question is Ellie going to comply? Does he really want this access? I think it's something they showed very well here, and it really does show that Mr. Robot was never meant to lead. He's there more to be a guide to Elliot. He's there to give him suggestions. He's there to motivate him, and I really did like that we saw that. Thought that was a very well done scene and really well added to the episode, and especially when we get to the twist, makes a lot more sense as it goes on. So Price actually did give Angela the new position. Her new boss is there giving her a rundown of what she needs to do. Basically course correct everything, find answers, limit damage. Basically to make the hack, sound like it's not as bad as it is. Don't make everyone think they're losing money and all that stuff. And he says he'll send her the class action lawsuit building up over water contamination. He says nothing public yet, but it could be big in the first quarter of 2016. Which again, this takes place in 2015. Very strange. And she asked if she should just go into the file server to access that. He says he'll have her fatigue and run through everything and asks if she knew Gideon. They work together on a couple products. He says it's terrible what happened. He says to let herself get back up to speed and they'll check in once a week. She is to let him know if she needs anything. She asks if she can sit on the daily debrief meeting, and he says that that's a director level meeting. They don't really invite managers to that, and she says if she could just sit and listen, it could help her get up to speed faster. So he says later this afternoon he'll send her an invite with the details, and he asks if she got an okay this morning with the protesters out there. He says it's crazy. She walks away, and Elliot tells us that he was on a route to cure. So very interesting the way that scene was done, and I do like the bonding between those two. But Elliot tells that he was on a route to cure himself of Mr. Robot. The regiment was supposed to be that path, and he never thought there would be the thing that led him right back where he started. And people always told him when he grew up that it was never about the destination, but the journey. But what if we're the destination? What if it's always been him? What if he's always been the guide to all this? And he walks down the street, and he's then cornered by the white supremacist group. They throw him into a fence, tell him he has too much courage, he's going to do him a solid, starts punching him, and he looks like he's about to rape him, and right before that happens, they are sliced and diced by Leon, who tells him he's going to get a lighter on Tuesday, do what it says, and we realize that Leon is working with White Rose. So yes, Leon is part of the Dark Army, and I thought it was definitely very interesting. We saw that. He says he'll be rooting for him always, and we basically realized that Leon was always there to protect Elliot, just like Mr. Robot was there to protect Elliot. So I'm kind of starting to get the sense that Leon may not be real. I mean, obviously he's working with White Rose, but just something tells me he's not real. I don't know what it is about it, but something about him seems like something about him's not real. I don't really know, but I think it was a very well done scene. I really did love that reveal, and it totally makes sense why Leon's been saying all this stuff to Elliot. I mean, while he's been talking about Seinfeld and things like that, he's also there to be part of the Dark Army, and I thought that was definitely very interesting, and I really did love that. And I gotta say, Joey Badass, I mean, as you guys know, this is his first role ever on TV, and he's just killing it. He's doing an incredible job. I'm loving his role, and I'm really loving what Leon's doing here. Definitely very good job. Angela's then at the meeting listening in, but Susan is missing, and Angela says she should put together a summary of how they handle past cases to see if it can help them figure out how to address this issue, and if they pull up cases, she could put together a summary reading. All she would need is to access to the files, and she could get at that right away. So her boss says there isn't much they can do there, calls the meeting adjourned, and he tells her right off the bat that he knows who she is. She did what she did to get a job here. She sucked whoever's dick it was to get transferred here, and frankly, he doesn't really care. Says this is a favor to Price, and when he asked how he should deal with her, Price said however he sees fit. So basically, whatever he says is how it's going to go. You know, Angela doesn't really have any control here, and I love that. I love that Angela's in a place where she has no control. She wants control, but it's clear she's not the one in control here, and I really thought that was a very well done scene. Absolutely love that. Amazing stuff there. But then we get to the stuff I know you guys want me to talk about, which is the huge twist that changed everything. So things start off normal. We see Krista. She's looking at this letter, says this is good news, and we're wondering what the hell is this letter? I was kind of thinking that it might be from the FBI saying that Ellie did the right thing and that he's okay and he's in the clear, or it's from maybe his mother saying he's okay or something like that, or even maybe from a therapist. I didn't really know what this letter was though, and right away things seem off. It seems like there's something going on, and asks Elliot if he's not happy about it. He says he's not sure. She asks when he got it. He says this morning. She asks him how his interactions were with Mr. Robot, and he says for the first time they trust each other. Since he's been at his mom's, he's want to get rid of him, but she was right in saying he can't destroy a part of himself. And okay, so right now it seems like things are on the right track, but then we get the dreadful line. Then we get the line that I think shocked all of us, where she asks straight out where he thinks he is right now. He asks, of course, he's asking what she means. She says he knows he hasn't been staying with his mother. He says he knows, and we hear this very loud alarm, and I love the way this transition was done. We go from the therapist room to realize that Elliot's actually speaking to her in prison, and he has been in prison this entire season, and it honestly makes so much sense, and I'll get into this in a second, but she says when he gets released, she hopes he continues seeing her. She thinks it's important that they maintain a regular schedule and asks if he agrees, and he says yes, and he then goes to the courtyard and revealing that he's been part of a prison, and that's also been part of the prison, which very much makes sense. Obviously, there's a reason why he went there. We know he didn't like basketball in the first place. Why was he watching basketball? That makes total sense. It's been part of the prison. He tells us control can sometimes be an illusion, but sometimes you need illusion to gain control. We realize that Leon's also an inmate as well. So Leon probably wasn't part of the Dark Army. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. I don't really know. But I'm assuming that Leon is just someone who was protecting him from getting raped in the prison. And he says, it presents us as an easy way to give meaning to the world, to cloak our harsh reality, and escapist comfort. After all, that's why we surround ourselves with so many screens, so we can avoid seeing in each other and truth. The church group is a support group, we realize, and in the prison, he says he's sorry for not telling us anything, but you need this to get better, and we realize that Elliot knew very well where he was. This was not one of his blackouts. This is not something where he was covering up what he was doing or anything like that. He knew very well what he was doing. He knew that he was in prison this entire time. He knew what was going on, and he wanted to keep it, he wanted to keep it as a secret. He didn't want anyone to find out where he really, he knew exactly where he was, but to keep himself sane and to not make himself go crazy, he needed to cloak this, reality to create this facade that he was in a better place than he actually was. And honestly, it's a genius twist. It makes so much sense that Elliot would do something like this. I've talked about this before. Elliot is an unreliable narrator. He doesn't always tell us the truth. Not everything he shows us is real, and that's something that I really like that we saw here, and is really reiterated here. He tells us that he says he needs to get better. He tells us to not be mad too long. This will be the last time he keeps things from us. Bullshit. I believe that, I'm sure there's going to be something bigger in Season 3. I know there's going to be. We then see what was his room, and we realize his mother was just an officer that happened to look like his mother, who looked like his mother. He says he knows what we're thinking, and no, he didn't lie to us. All of this really happened. This was just his way of coping with it, but now he'd like it if we could trust each other again. He says to shake on it, and that is how the episode ends. Holy shit, welcome to the mindfuck, but they actually topped it. They really did. They actually topped the twist in Season 1. I am shocked that they actually did that. I didn't think it was possible, but they actually did it, and here's why. It's very easy to tell you why, because Season 1, I kind of knew. I had this theory that Mr. Robot was his father. I kind of knew that. I mean, I kind of had this theory. I didn't think Darlene was a sister. That was the kicker. I don't think anyone really believed. But I kind of had this feeling that Mr. Robot was his father. This, I had no idea. I had no idea that Elliot was doing this. I had no idea that this was fake. And I know a lot of people suspected it. I guess I'm just stupid because I never really suspected it. But what a way to end the episode. Let's talk about this episode overall, my predictions for next week, because there's a lot to talk about, definitely. So, wow, okay. There's a lot to really get into in terms of, what Elliot just faked and what was real. Now, Elliot said point blank that everything that we saw happened, but a lot of people are wondering about Ray. Was Ray real? Was Ray actually on a computer? No, I don't think Ray really was on a computer. I think Ray was involved in some sort of illegal business, and he got Elliot involved in it somehow, and Elliot used it as, said that it was on a computer to make it seem like, we knew what he was talking about, so he could make himself feel comfortable, because I don't think he wants to admit that he was involved with what he really was, and that's something I thought that we saw very well. I really did enjoy that. Ray, I'm assuming, got killed. I'm assuming that Ray got killed in the prison, or he turned himself in. I heard some people say that. A lot of people are thinking that he's a guard as well, and that's something that Elliot's going to explain to us. Sam Esmail said that give it time, you'll get an explanation about that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that's going to be. As far as what Elliot's in jail for, I think it kind of makes sense of who was at that door. They never revealed to us who was at that door at the end of Season 1. I am 99% sure that that was the cops. And why? You guys remember that scene, the first scene way in the beginning of the season finale where Lenny goes to Krista and says, we need to do something about Elliot, and she doesn't agree to, and he says, I'm going to do something. I am assuming that Lenny called the cops and Elliot's in jail for hacking into his profile and doing all that stuff he did, and Krista's with him because she knows why he's in jail and she's the one that wants to help him, and that makes a lot of sense. Also, Angela's visits, Darlene visits, those all make sense too because they've been so one-sided. They've only been in this conformed space, and it makes sense because they could obviously only see Elliot once. Darlene calling him, that makes sense as well. Obviously, you can only get like one phone call, so that makes sense why that happened. I thought that was very well done. So Elliot being in prison, I think, does make sense, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with that. I'm assuming that letter was a letter of release. That's what I'm assuming, at least. I'm assuming that he's going to be released from prison, or something's going to happen there. We'll have to see what happens there. There's still a lot of things to connect. Is Leon really involved with the Dark Army? I don't really know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Again, a lot of what Elliot said, I think a lot of it did. He said everything happened, but did it happen in exactly the way that Elliot told us it happened? That's really the question, is how did this all really go down? I think that's definitely going to be very interesting. So all of that's so cool. I can't wait to see the way all of that goes because it just made things so much more interesting, and the symbolism in this episode was turned up to 11, and I gotta say it worked perfectly in this episode. I really did love the way that that was done. Let's talk about Angela, though, because Angela's in a position where she isn't really, the authoritative one here. She's usually the one that is dominant. She's usually the one that's barking orders to people, and here, she's not, and I really did love that. I love seeing Angela in a position where she's not in power, just like Elliot's in a position where he's not in power. Elliot is not in control in prison. He wants us to believe that he's in control of his life, when really he's not, because he's in prison, and obviously when you're in prison, people are barking orders at you. Angela, this boss obviously is on to her, and we don't really know what he's going to do, but between that and then what Dom is doing, this definitely is not going to end well for Angela. Now, Elliot is not in jail for the 5'9" hack. If he was, then Dom would be going to him, Gideon would have gone to him, I mean, those people would have gone to him. He's clearly not in jail for that reason. Gideon went to him for a reason, definitely, and I don't think that he's in jail for the 5'9" hack. I mean, again, I think maybe he could be, I don't know. Like I said, I'm sure there's still some dots to connect, and I'm sure they're going to connect said dots in the next episodes, which I'm looking forward to. As far as Darlene, what did Darlene F Society see in the computer that shocked them? What's happening? We'll have to see. Like I said, next week's episode looks like it's solely focused around them. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to be. And then Price, I honestly do feel bad for Price. I think they kind of showed that Price just really wants a friend. He doesn't really have one. He looks at Angela kind of as his friend, and he's also on to her, though. He's clearly on to her, so I don't really know if he does care about her, or if he's just trying to get information out of her, and he's really trying to sabotage her. I don't really know, but like I said, I do think Angela's something very bad's about to happen to her. I don't know what extent, but something definitely is going to happen to her. Let's talk about Tyrell, because Mr. Robot told Elliot that Tyrell is dead. Now, is Tyrell dead? No. I don't even think Mr. Robot shot him. I think Mr. Robot said that because he wanted to protect Elliot from the harsh reality that he was really in. He doesn't want to admit to Elliot what he really did to Tyrell. I don't think that they shot Tyrell. I don't think that Tyrell's in the hospital right now. I think something definitely happened to Tyrell, and I think it's somehow connected to that car, because all Elliot remembers is waking up in Tyrell's car. So either he kidnapped Tyrell and he's in the trunk of his car, or something more is going on. I think it all goes back, though, to the trunk of the car last week, and there's definitely some sort of connection there. Again, I don't really know. Mr. Robot just stumps me so much that I don't really know what that is. Joanna, does Joanna genuinely care about Derek? I think we kind of saw that there. Or is she just using him to make him her next target? I don't really know. And does she really want to divorce Tyrell? Are those actual divorce papers, or did she just have those printed? I don't really know. We'll have to see what happens with that. Overall, guys, I am past mind fuck, honestly. I can't believe this reveal. It's incredible, but again, it really just showed the genius of the show. And Sam Esmail said they did this from the beginning. This wasn't just a random twist he did, guys, to fool us all. And no, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yes, there is a lot of things that make sense, but a lot of things don't. That's because there's still episodes to do that. There's a reason why the season isn't over, because a lot of the stuff isn't supposed to make sense till the end of the season. And I will tell you guys, most likely by the end of the season, we're going to have closure. We're going to know. We're going to be like, all right, now I know why he's in jail. I think a lot of people that are saying this doesn't make any sense, next week are going to be like, that makes total sense. I think that's going to happen in a couple episodes, but I think you just need to trust Sam Esmail. He knows what he's doing. He said that he wanted to direct every episode because he wanted to tell the story that he wanted to tell. He doesn't like stories that have misplaced events. He made this twist for a reason, and we're going to see why he did that. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happens with that. But overall, guys, this episode was incredible. And like I said, I really do think it might have just surpassed White Rose as the best episode the show has done. Because, again, it really just showed the role that we play. It shows how far Elliot can go into believing his own lies. And the mask that he's protected, eventually it has to come off. I think that's the big theme of this season is a mask and how everyone has one. People are pretending to be something they're not. And everyone's hiding behind their true selves. I think that's something that we're definitely seeing here. But overall, guys, I'm you guys saw this episode. Love to hear your thoughts on it. Absolutely love this episode. Amazing stuff so far. Happy birthday, Christian Slayer, by the way. We share the same birthday, which I think is really cool. And, of course, it's my birthday as well. But happy birthday to Christian Slayer. I just realized this. But let me know what you guys saw this episode. Love to hear your thoughts on it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for this week of Big Brother, which I actually have a lot to say, believe it or not. And we'll see you guys for that. So, okay, bye.